Hello and welcome to Awaz News. I'm Kubrali and I'll be taking you through big news across Canada. Students in Whitby, Ontario walked out of class Monday to protest a recent decision by administrators at 3 schools in Durham region to cancel prom. In a letter to grade 12 families of Brooklyn, Brock and Uxbridge High Schools dated October 3rd, the principals wrote that the choice to axe the event was made due to the growing expectations, liabilities and risks connected to hosting it. Beginning this year, our school will be moving away from organizing a formal prom. The letter, which surfaced online, reads in part, "The decision blindsided Brooklyn High School students Amelia Gatti and Lauren Robertson, who organized the walkout and spoke to Awaz News on Tuesday. This whole thing came very unexpectedly on Friday at 4 p.m. with no real reasoning behind it," Gatti said. "I mean, we haven't really had an incident that could suggest this outcome for our prom event to paused or cancelled. Prom was taken away from us, right? At some point it was gone and we thought that it wasn't going to happen again until people stepped up. I feel like we deserve to be compensated for that and in return have a prom that we will never forget," Gatti said. The school said that while their reimagining of end-of-the-year celebrations may be disappointing for some and welcome by others, they underscored that communities are free to organize their own celebrations. In a statement to Awaz News, the Durham District School Board, of which Brooklyn, Brock and Uxbridge High Schools are a part, said it has asked the schools to pause the decision. The board went on to say that it wants to ensure that students' voices are heard and that the spirits of celebration and recognition remains at the heart of these occasions. The board did not say whether or not the schools had responded to its request. It's unclear when exactly students will have an opportunity to voice their concerns directly with their school administrators. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says that Canada must be prepared to take a different approach and begin hitting back against U.S. tariffs should a deal not to be reached to end the trade war. Ford made the comment to reporters at Queen's Park on Tuesday ahead of a planned Oval Office meeting between the Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump. Canada lifted many of its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods in August. Since then, the U.S. has continued to introduce new tariffs on its trading partners, including 10% duties on imported timber and lumber and 25% duties on imported kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and upholstered furniture that are both set to take effect on October 14. Ford previously threatened to cut off the electricity Ontario supplies to 3 U.S. states that agreed to suspend the levy back in March following a conversation with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. On Tuesday, the Premier was asked whether he would consider reintroducing that measure as the trade war drags on and seemed to suggest it was at least a possibility. Ontario currently ships surplus energy to New York, Minnesota, and Michigan, but Ford mused that some manufacturers could potentially shift production to off-peak hours and gain access to the lower-cost electricity Ontario provides to its neighbors south of the border. When we need to do is to use that energy to be more competitive. If Trump wants to shut down every single industry, then we are going to need the energy, he said. We are giving the U.S. energy at an extremely low cost. We are keeping 1.5 million lights on the businesses open in the New York and Michigan and Minnesota, and I know that the provinces are doing the same thing. Let's start giving it to our manufacturers." Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump have wrapped up a 2.5-hour meeting at the White House, with latter once again hinting at his threats to annex Canada. It was the second high-stakes in-person between Carney and Trump since May, though the two have been in frequent contact as they work to hash out a new economic and security deal. Joining Carney is a handful of cabinet ministers, including Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand, Industry Minister Melanie Joly, and Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodson. Canada's ambassador to the U.S., Kirsten Hillman, is also in the meeting. Speaking to the reporters in the Oval Office, Carney once again called Trump a transformative president, listing his accomplishments during his second term, during which Trump added at the merger of Canada and the United States. Trump's comments about Canada becoming the 51st state have dominated the headlines for months, with the president after threatening to use economic force to accomplish the annexation. A source speaking on background told Awaz News late last week that Canadian officials were cautiously optimistic there could be potential movement on steel or aluminum tariffs following Tuesday's meeting. When asked by reporters in the Oval Office on Tuesday on what it would take for the U.S. to reduce or withdraw tariffs on steel and aluminum, Trump said, "We are going to be talking about that with the Prime Minister." Canada and U.S. have been in an ongoing trade war since February, when Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on Canadian goods, claiming they were related to border security. Those were later scaled back to apply only to the goods not covered by the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement CUSMA. But in the months since, the U.S. president has stacked additional sectoral tariffs on steel and aluminum, copper, and autos. Trump has also announced tariffs on lumber and medium and heavy-duty trucks are on the way. In late August, Carney announced Canada would be dropping many of its counter-tariffs by exempting goods covered by CUSMA. In addition to the counter-tariff carve-out, Canada has made other concessions, for example, scrapping the controversial digital services tax to which Trump was vehemently opposed. Canada has also made policy decisions in response to Trump's concerns, namely by introducing a $1.3 billion border plan and naming a fentanyl czar, and by speeding up the date by which it will meet its defense spending commitments to NATO. Asked on Tuesday if Carney has done anything to make it easier or more difficult to reach a deal, Trump said, "No, I think he's a great minister." Trump said, "I mean, he could represent me." When asked why he hasn't yet made a deal with Canada if he believes Carney to be a great man, Trump said, "Because I want to be a great man too." Police say that an Innisfil man is facing charges in connection with 7 shooting incidents that took place at residences across the Greater Toronto Area and in London this past summer. The shootings took place between August 18 and September 10th in Brampton, Vaughan, and London. Police say that investigators believe the suspect fired a combined 125 shots during the incidents. There were no injuries reported as a result of any of the shootings. The suspect was arrested in the early morning hours of September 10th after police responded to a call for the sounds of gunshots near Bathurst Streets and Teston Road in Vaughan. Police say that the suspect was initially charged with offences related to the September 10 shooting and has since been linked to the other shooting incidents. Cajun Isaiah Doman, 23, is now facing an additional 6 counts of discharging a firearm with intent and additional 6 counts of possessing a prohibited or restricted firearm, police say. Police say that Doman has remained in custody since his September 10 arrest. The charges against him have not been tested in court. Investigators are appealing to anyone who have made video surveillance or dashcam footage from the areas at the time of the shootings to please come forward, police said in the news release. A man has been charged in connection with an unprovoked assault in Oshawa Monday night that left another man in life-threatening condition. Durham police said information from witnesses suggests the victim was crossing the street in the area of Ritson Road North and Taunton Road East when the suspect approached from behind and began assaulting him. The victim did not know the suspect, police said. Shortly after, officers arrived and found the victim with critical injuries. He was subsequently taken to the Toronto Trauma Center. Police said the suspect was located nearby and arrested. He has been identified as 33-year-old Dwayne Wallen of Oshawa. He is facing an aggravated assault charge. Police are asking anyone with the information to contact them at 1-888-579-1520 extension 2765 or Crime Stoppers anonymously at 1-800-222-TIPS 8477. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is resolute in his push to ban automated speed enforcement cameras across the province, calling municipalities that want to keep them greedy. During a news conference at Queen's Park on Tuesday, Ford repeated that the cameras are cash grabs, insisting they aren't effective to slowing drivers down, despite a recent study by SICKIDS and Toronto Metropolitan University that found the equipment does work in curbing speeding. We have an alternative to put infrastructure in, but folks, they don't want to do that. They want to continue to collect hundreds of millions of dollars and continue speeding. Let speeding happen. They aren't worried about the safety of people. If they were, they would start installing infrastructure, the Premier said. In September, Ford announced that he would introduce legislation this month to ban ACE across the province. After removing the cameras that have been installed, municipalities would then be required to install large new warning signs by mid-November, with permanent flashing light signage by the fall 2026. Ford said when the new traffic calming measures such as roundabouts and speed bumps are in place, no one will be speeding 100%. Early on Tuesday, Ford wrote back to Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown and Burlington Mayor Mead Ward, who sent a letter last week urging the Premier not to implement a total ban on the cameras. Brown and Ward's letter, which was signed by 18 other Ontario mayors, presented a compromise that would allow municipalities to continue using them in school zones. In his letter to Brown and Ward, Ford asserted the traffic calming infrastructure measures his government would be implemented as 100% effective at slowing down drivers. The only thing municipal speed cameras are 100% effective at is taking money from hardworking people, Ford wrote in the letter. Ford also responded to the mayor's request that the province fully reimburse their municipalities for the costs they would incur in cancelling the ACE program. He criticized the mayors for being dependent on ineffective speed cameras and said they should have used the money to install more proactive, effective, and immediate traffic calming measures. It was the Ford government that passed a law in 2019 that permitted municipalities to install the cameras. While the province will not pay municipalities for the cost of removing the cameras, Ford said Ontario's legislation will indemnify municipalities to de-risk the termination of contracts that should never been signed in first place. Brad Bradford, the councillor of Beaches, East York, says he will run to become the mayor of Toronto in the municipal election. He made the announcement on Wednesday, more than a year away from the October 2026 election. Bradford is the first notable person to declare his intention to run for mayor. This is the second time Bradford will run the city's top job. He finished 8th in the June 2023 mayoral by-election, which was won by Mayor Olivia Chow. She has not formally announced if she is seeking re-election. When asked about her plans, Chow said she is focused on running the city and not campaign. A Forum Research poll released last month found that if it's a long ballot, Chow would receive the most support from voters, even with former Mayor John Tory in the race. However, Chow would be in danger if it's two-way contest against either Tory or Bradford, the poll found. Tory, who resigned as mayor in February 2023 after admitting to an affair with a member of his staff, has said he's mulling a possible run, but he's in no rush to make a decision. I'm thinking about it because I do run into lots of people on street who encouraged me to come back into politics, but I have got my hands full trying to build the city in other ways, Tory said last month. If Tory were to run against Chow, Licensed Strategies found that it would essentially become a two-horse race with no other candidate garnering the support of more than 7% of decided voters. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Kubra Ali. I'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Have a good night.